Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to AMC Mailbag, the show here on AMC Movie News, where all we do is take your mailbag questions every day, Monday through Friday on AMC Movie Talk. We take a couple of your mailbag questions, but here on Saturdays and Sundays, we'd like to take a whole bunch of them, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them. That's what we like to do. By the way, my name's John Campy. I'm the editor-in-chief of AMC Movie News. And listen, if you'd like to get one of your questions on either AMC Movie Talk or AMC Mailbag, you can email us anytime at this email address that you see here, amcmovietalk@gmail.com. You can email us 24/7, and who knows, send in your questions, and maybe your question or one of your questions will get on either AMC Movie Talk or AMC Mailbag. And I gotta tell you, this has been a good weekend. Man, Guardians of the Galaxy Open is just doing bonkers at the box office, exceeding all the early predictions, probably from the insane positive word of mouth. I have now seen the film 5 times. That's just kind of a testimony to how much I like this film. I'm so excited about it. I'm going to tell you what else. They gave us the soundtrack, which, by the way, I think this might be the best soundtrack ever to any movie ever. And I have it in my head all the time. Like, I'll just be sitting around, like, and I'll tell you, well, I'll be sitting around, all of a sudden I'll just be, hey, hey, I just start singing and dancing because it just makes me happy thinking about it. I know that seems a little bit ridiculous for a grown-ass man to do, but I'm just telling you the truth. I'm just being honest with you. I share my heart, and my heart is I love this damn movie. Like I said before, not the best movie of the year, but it's just a happy movie, man. It's just fun. It makes me smile. I really, really enjoy it. I'm going to give you the heads up here, as I will for the next few weeks. You probably noticed I haven't been on AMC Movie Talk. My voice is shot. It's gone. I've got a bad cough. I'm probably going to have it for a few weeks. So you'll probably have to endure me sipping on my lemon honey tea from time to time through the show. And I may have to do some edits here and there because I may need to take breaks or whatever. But hey, who cares about any of that? It's time for us to talk about some movie issues that you guys have sent in. So let's get to the mailbag right now. And we will start with question number 1. And question number 1 today comes in from Lathe Magnusson, who writes, huge fan of the show. I started watching it back in August 2013. Well, thanks so much, Lathe. Really appreciate that. And I was wondering, do you think they will make a Kick-Ass 3? Well, Lathe, you're not the first person to send in this question. We've addressed this before. And it's interesting as we get further away and further away from Kick-Ass 2, we gain some perspective on it and what's going on with it. And I think the further and further we get away from Kick-Ass 2, I think the more and more it becomes clear and apparent that we are probably not going to see a Kick-Ass 3. And I think it was always unlikely that we're going to see a Kick-Ass 3. Number one, narrative-wise, I mean, the fact of the matter is Chloe Moretz is getting older and older to be Hit Girl. The other fact of the matter is that Aaron Taylor Johnson is becoming a bigger and bigger name. So getting him in for these small little films is going to be harder, more and more difficult to do from a scheduling point of view, from a budget point of view. And what was also going to be a challenge for Kick-Ass 3 right off the bat was the fact that Kick-Ass 2, didn't make much money. Domestically, it made under $30 million. Worldwide, total, it made $60 million. Now, that's on roughly a $30 million budget. You take into consideration it had about a $15 to $20 million marketing campaign, which brings its expense up to $35 to $40 million. Sorry, $45 to $50 million. And then out of that $60 million it made, probably about $20 million of it had to stay with theaters. So, ultimately for the studios, Kick-Ass 2 lost money. It lost the money. And so it's really hard, coming off something like that. Chloe Grace Moretz is aging. Aaron Taylor Johnson is a growing, rising star, and so is Chloe Moretz. The fact that it didn't make much money, there's not many more places for it to go. I think it's becoming more and more apparent that it's just not going to happen. And since Kick-Ass 2, we've gone weeks and months and months and months, more and more, that we don't hear anybody even talking about it. I believe Aaron Taylor Johnson at a Avengers 2 press conference, at a Godzilla press conference, somebody asked him about Kick-Ass 3, and I think he pretty much said, hey, look, I'm never say never. I'm open to whatever, but he made it pretty clear that it's pretty unlikely that it'll happen, and I think he's right. I'm actually one of the people who I liked Kick-Ass 2. I did. I know a lot of people didn't like it. I did like it, but I thought it was a big step backwards from Kick-Ass 1. And I mainly attribute that to the absence of Big Daddy. I think you could really feel the absence of Big Daddy in the movie. And they never really found a way to compensate for that missing element, in my opinion. So while I still enjoyed the film, I thought it was a big step backwards. I think most people considered it a step backwards. So all those things, it just feels like this deck is stacked against a Kick-Ass 3, my friend. I think we're going to have to resign ourselves to just knowing that we're not going to see another Kick-Ass. That's just my opinion. Who knows? Maybe they'll surprise us all and come out with something, but I just don't think it's going to happen. All right, let's move on to question number 2. And question number 2 today comes to us from Nick Parker. And Nick Parker writes, "Greetings, everyone. My question is about Thanos and his place going forward in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Everyone says, oh, Thanos will be the big bad guy in Avengers 3. But I thought I remember somewhere Feige saying, Kevin Feige, the president of Marvel, saying Thanos was a kind of endgame, if you will. Do you think we could get a few more Avengers films before the Mad Titan comes to Earth? Because who poses a bigger threat than Thanos? How do you up the ante after that?" Well, Nick, it's a great question you raise. I mean, look, the general thing, you got the law of diminishing returns, right? The general thing with these movies and franchises is you want to up the ante, you want to up the threat level as you go. You save the neighborhood, then you save the city, then you save the country, then you save the world, then you save the galaxy. I mean, you kind of up the ante as you go. But at some point, you have to reset that and get back to something a little more manageable. I think you can only drag the Thanos thing out so long. Because remember, Thanos is now not just in Avengers. He's now in Guardians of the Galaxy. Which I hope that wasn't too big of a spoiler. But, I mean, he's listed in the credits on IMDb. So, I mean, there you go. And it was announced a long time ago that Josh Brolin was going to be Thanos for Guardians of the Galaxy and for Avengers and moving forward. But so I hope that's not that big of a spoiler to anybody. But Thanos is appearing in more than just the Avengers movies. So it feels like they're interweaving him now into the larger Marvel Cinematic Universe. That being the case, you can only stretch this out for so long before you finally just have to deal with Thanos. I mean, they introduced us to Thanos a couple of years ago now in the first Avengers film. How long can you stretch that out? At some point, you have to bring it to a head and confront that threat, that big overarching storyline. And I believe Avengers 3 is going to be that coming to a head. That's going to be the end game. Now, from there, once you save the world, once you save the universe, there are still things going on. I mean, look, let's look at Captain America, right? Captain America, he didn't save the galaxy in Captain America 2. You know, it was a smaller scale than an alien invasion in the first Avengers film where the Avengers literally had to save the planet. It was different. It was, even though it was still big scale in Captain America the Winter Soldier, it was still big scale. It was a significantly smaller scale than an invading alien army. So the law of diminishing returns does not always apply. You can go from saving the galaxy to saving the city or saving 1 million people instead of 6 billion people. You can do that. And what Marvel is going to have to do is, and I'm sure they're already in their planning stages for this, is what do you do after Thanos? And it doesn't necessarily, that next thing doesn't necessarily have to be a bigger threat than Thanos was. You just have to come up with the new threat. And maybe after that, maybe Hulk becomes the threat. And, you know, there's been a lot of dancing around about what do you do about Hulk, World War Hulk, and, Planet Hulk, and all that kind of stuff. And maybe at some point that, after Avengers 3, is when you start launching into Planet Hulk, World War Hulk, stuff like that, where Hulk himself becomes the threat. Can you imagine a pissed off Hulk with the mental capacities of Dr. Banner, like totally in control, he's totally intelligent, totally able to communicate and all that kind of stuff, at the head of an alien army? That's pretty big stakes too. So my whole point here is this, is that you can't drag on the Thanos thing too long. Because if you just drag Thanos out and keep dragging him out, eventually it's not, you lose the dynamic energy about him. You lose that dramatic tension with him if you don't eventually just get to it already, right? Can't keep dragging him out. So you can do Thanos, and then you can shrink the stakes, if you will. You can go from saving the entire galaxy back to saving the city, or back to saving one person even. You can do it, because I believe Captain America the Winter Soldier proved you can do that with us. So I think probably that's the way they're going to go with it. So yes, I do believe Avengers 3 will be the climax of the Thanos storyline, and then they will move on to something else. And what that other thing will be, I don't know yet, but I'm sure they're already thinking about it. Great question, though. All right, let's move on to question number 3. And the third question today comes to us from Cameren Ceniceros. I hope I'm saying your name right. And he writes, "Hey guys, love the show. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. I heard you guys talk about when the first trailer might show up for Star Wars Episode 7. Some say that some say at Star Wars Celebration. Some say at next year's Comic-Con. My theory, since Star Wars is owned by Disney, it will debut in front of Avengers Age of Ultron. What do you guys think?" Well, yeah, that's starting to become a question now about when will that first Star Wars trailer drop. Now, let's keep this in mind that the next Star Wars movie is still a year and a half away. I mean, it's a long ways away. So it's not like it's imminent. I know some people were thinking they were going to drop a Star Wars trailer at this past Comic-Con that just happened last week. I knew that wasn't going to be the case. I have a feeling, I don't think it's going to be Star Wars Celebration either. They might show something, but I really don't think they're going to drop a trailer on us at that point. I don't think that's J.J. Abrams style. I don't think that's what Lucasfilm wants to do yet. But I also feel like Avengers and the next Comic-Con might be a little late for the very first sizzle trailer. Because at that point, we're 5 or 6 months away from the movie. And I got a feeling that a movie the size of Star Wars Episode 7, they're going to want to put the first thing out before that. So I believe that the answer is kind of none of the above. If I had to put money on it, and I'm not willing to put money on it, but if I had to put money on it, I would venture a guess and say that around February, sometime around February, I think we'll start seeing the first teaser trailer and thing like that drop for Star Wars Episode 7. I think it's going to be around there. I don't think they're going to wait as long as summer of 2015 to drop it, but I also think, this year is a little too ambitious. So if I had to put money on it, and I'm not willing to at all, but I would guess it's probably going to be around February. Just a guess. I mean, I'm probably dead wrong, but I'm going to guess January, February is probably going to be the sweet spot for them to drop something like that. I do expect to see a significant presence for Star Wars at Comic-Con next year, but by then I think we would have seen our first pieces of footage and trailers and stuff like that already. So yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb, and for now, I am going to say we were going to see the first trailer, teaser or otherwise, for Star Wars Episode 7 come February. So there you go. All right, let's move on to the next question. The next question today comes to us from KJ Green. And KJ writes, "You guys have a very informative show, and I love to watch every day." Well, thank you. We love that you watch, KJ. Hope you guys enjoyed Comic-Con. And my question is about the Marvel panel. I wanted to know if Fox could take legal action against Marvel because of Elizabeth Olsen's incident of slipping up and calling her character the M-word, mutant. Thanks, and keep bringing the filthy. Well, KJ, for those of you who don't know what KJ is talking about, as many of you know, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are two of, and the only two, Marvel comic book characters that, due to the agreement between Fox and Marvel, that both Fox and Marvel can use. Hence, in X-Men Days of Future Past, we have a Quicksilver character, and in the upcoming Avengers 2, we have a Quicksilver character. Now, Avengers 2 also has a Scarlet Witch character, and should Fox choose to use Scarlet Witch, they can also use Scarlet Witch. They are the only two characters that can go back and forth and share the two studios, Fox and Marvel. Now, one of the conditions about that sharing is that Fox cannot reference anything that has to do with Avengers. Nothing Avengers that, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch may form some kind of an avenging team in the Fox universe. No, they cannot mention Avengers whatsoever. But at the same time, in the Marvel movies, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch cannot make any mention to their relation to Magneto, obviously, and also cannot use the word mutant. They cannot be referred to as mutants. So that's the kind of the asterisk beside each of those things. Now, at Comic-Con last week, at the Avengers, or at the Marvel panel, Elizabeth Olsen talked about using magical or, and the word she used was mutated characters. And when she said mutated, everybody in the audience was, oh, she kind of used a word that sounds like mutant, mutated, ah. So the question KJ is asking, you say, hey, wait, Elizabeth Olsen just kind of dropped the M word. Can Fox now take legal action against Marvel? And the answer to that question is no. She is an individual who, slipped a word at a press event at Comic-Con. This was not in the movie. This was not part of the marketing for the movie. This was nothing like that. This was not coming from Fox, or this was not coming from Marvel. She's an individual person who on a panel let a word slip. No. Fox would be jackasses to bring legal action. I think they know they couldn't bring legal action even if they wanted to on something like this. And I don't think Fox is interested in bringing legal action just because of something as silly and as little as that. Now, should Avengers 2 come out, and in the movie Scarlet Witch comes along at some point and says, you don't know what it's like to be a mutated person. And if that happened in the movie, then you can sure Fox is picking up their phones and calling their lawyers right now, getting ready to launch a huge lawsuit against Marvel. All that being said, that's not what happened here. This was at a press event. An individual actress let slip a word. I don't think Fox is concerned about it. Even if they were concerned about it, I don't think they'd do anything about it. And if they did try to do something about it, they wouldn't get anywhere. So all those things combined, I don't think Fox is giving it a second thought. I don't think we should give it a second thought. It really wasn't that big of a deal. And we move on. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Mark Charette, who writes, there has been a lot of discussion amongst fans of Deadpool needing to be a hard R for it to work. I saw a comment on a forum yesterday which leads me to think a PG-13 could, if written into the script, would actually work for Deadpool. PG-13, you're not allowed a bunch of blood or the use of more than one swear word. The comment I saw talked about letting Deadpool swear but bleeping it out and having Deadpool make reference to the bleeps and lack of blood to the audience. Well, okay, so what Mark's talking about is for the character Deadpool, a lot of us have been saying, me included, saying, hey, if you're going to do Deadpool right, you got to do him rated R. Because that's what Deadpool is. But I got to tell you, Mark, you raise a really interesting possibility here. Because we all saw that piece of Deadpool footage, right? That test footage that they shot that's online that you can find anywhere. If you haven't seen it yet, just go on YouTube, search Deadpool test footage, and you'll find it. In that Deadpool test footage, you'll notice something. No blood. Even with a severed head, no blood in that test footage. Did anybody online go, oh, that's just a soft piece of test footage. There's no blood. No. We all loved it. Did you even notice there was no blood? Probably not. I bet a lot of people didn't even notice the lack of blood. Huge violence, killing a bunch of guys, but no blood. And that carries a big weight with the MPAA and what you rate things, right? The no blood thing. So here we have this piece of test footage that we all went bananas about, and none of us even noticed the lack of blood. So could you do a Deadpool movie and just keep a really oddly missing sense of a huge amount of blood? I think you can. I think that test footage just proved you can. But now let's move on to the other thing. You can't have it rated PG-13 with a lot of swearing. This breaking the fourth wall thing with Deadpool, I gotta tell you, Mark, I really like this idea. Have him swear, but have it beeped. And have him acknowledge the beeping. You write that into the movie, that could actually become really funny. Because you could have a scene where something bad or something goes really wrong for Deadpool, and all you've got is beep, 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 beep. That could be really funny. So let's step back here for a second. Okay, the big problems, the blood, and the big problems, the swearing. The blood, I think that test footage proved that you could have all the violence with lack of blood and none of us would blink. And then you make beeping out Deadpool's dialogue when he swears as a part of the gag? Look, I'm not saying that's what I would do. I'm not saying that's how I would do it if I'm the studio head. I'm not saying necessarily, yeah, let's get a PG-13 rating by doing beeps and no blood. I'm not necessarily saying that's what I would do. But I am saying that's a hell of an idea. That opens up a world of possibilities. that at least brings a Deadpool that I think fans would accept, that want the hard, edgy stuff. I think that Deadpool is a Deadpool that fans would accept, and you'd still be able to get that PG-13 rating. I'm sure there are some problems with the idea, absolutely, like any idea does. But I got to tell you, Mark, I never would have considered that a possibility. But this suggestion, I think, has some advantages. I think there's some advantages to this suggestion, because you know that getting a PG-13 rating is important to the studio because it means they can get more people to see it. So that's a big thing. But how do you do that while keeping the fans of the title happy with the right amount of violence and right amount of swearing? That might be an interesting compromise that might make most people happy. Maybe not. Like I said, I'm not sure I would necessarily go in that direction, but at least it's an idea, and it's an idea I hadn't considered before. So do me a favor, guys, hop into the comment section and let me know what you think about this suggestion that Mark is bringing up. No blood, which we didn't have in the test footage anyway, and none of you complained about it. And beep out, have him swear all you want, but have it an audible beeping out as kind of a play on the whole we're breaking the fourth wall thing. I gotta tell you, I've got some enthusiasm about it. Once again, not sure I would do it, but I got some enthusiasm. Jump in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Honestly, don't just be a purist and say no. Just jump in and say, hey, yeah, this could work because of this, or it might not work because of this. I'd be interested in knowing your thoughts. So jump on in there and let us know what you think. All right, let's move on to, oh my gosh, did I take a question from the same guy twice? I did. Oh my goodness, somebody got in 2 questions on the mailbag. I don't think this has ever happened before, but on today's mailbag, Cameren Ceniceros is getting 2 questions asked, and his second question is this. Hey AMC, love the show. My question is regarding the future of the DC Universe. If we see them get more established over time, could we see the Injustice Gods Among Us story brought to the big screen? Thanks, and keep bringing on the filthy. Well, for those of you who don't know, I'm a huge fan of Injustice Gods Among Us. It's a story, it's a game / storyline. It's kind of an Elseworld storyline, if you will, made for this game, where basically it imagines that there are 2 different realities that are exactly the same. But in one reality, the Joker, without going into all the details, the Joker tricks Superman into killing Lois Lane, who was pregnant with their child. So Lois Lane was pregnant with their child, and the Joker manipulates and tricks Superman into killing her. As you can imagine, Clark Kent is none too happy about that situation. And Batman's got the Joker in prison, is interrogating him. Superman shows up, and Superman kills the Joker. And what happens is this becomes a big shift between the 2 realities, because now in this reality, you've got a Superman that has killed. The man with the ultimate godlike power has killed. And, you know, when he didn't need to, when he didn't have to, he just walked into a room and was going to just flat out murder this dude who was helpless before him. So what happens then is that sets off a chain of events where Superman starts to believe he has a responsibility to stop all crime by whatever means necessary. And eventually that leads a path to madness. And he decides that the only way to really bring peace to the world is for him to take over the world and for him to rule it. And so it becomes more and more despotic. So he and Batman become enemies because Batman believes that this is wrong, blah, blah, blah. It's a really interesting thing. And then you got all the different heroes in the DC universe that have to take sides. They either take Superman's side or they take Batman's side. And this kind of war ensues, if you will. It's an incredible story. Honestly, one of the best story arcs in a comic I've read since Age of Apocalypse. Go and read. I believe it's like 23 issues. It's the first storyline of Injustice Gods Among Us. You can find it on Comixology or probably on the DC comic book app. Some of the best written comic book work I've read in years. It's amazing. So anyway, getting to the question here is, and that's the basis. That story is the basis for the game, or the game was the basis for the story. Either way you look at it. So the question that is being asked here is, could we see that being turned into a movie? Absolutely. With this DC cinematic universe they're setting up, you could very easily do an Injustice Gods Among Us storyline. Because let's say they, I don't know whether Doomsday or Darkseid or whoever's going to be the big ultimate villain bad guy, Brainiac or whoever, Once Justice League, the movie happens, and they deal with that, where do you go from there? Remember, we were just asking this question about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Where do you go? I believe they have a gold mine of an opportunity here to do the heroes versus themselves, where you have the two different timelines. Because what eventually happens in Injustice Gods Among Us is some of the heroes from our reality go into that other reality to help them combat Superman and help them bring an end to the tyranny that Superman is bringing. Including our Superman goes over to help stop him as well. I think there is a really good open door with this current DC Cinematic Universe they're setting up. I believe an Injustice Gods Among Us would fit. I really do. Where you have another reality open up where Clark Kent just decides to murder a bunch of people because he thought it was a good reason. It sets him down a very dark path to the point that it changes the world. And now heroes from our reality have to go over there and help stop it. I think it's an incredible idea. I think it opens a world of possibilities, and I think it's very feasible. I would not bet against it. I would absolutely not bet against an Injustice Gods Among Us storyline eventually coming to the DC Cinematic Universe, but we're probably a ways off from that. So let's not hold our breath. I wouldn't put money on it, but I totally think it's feasible. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Osa Okaji, who writes, I was excited about the Assassin's Creed movie until Michael Fassbender left because the studio was not faithful to the story. Does this mean we will have yet another failed video game movie? Well, Osa, I want to address a couple things here. Number one, I got to preach this all the time. Be very careful where you get your movie news from. Seriously, I got to preach about this all the time. Be very, very, very careful where you get your movie news from. Michael Fassbender has not left the Assassin's Creed movie. He hasn't. That was a fake rumor being spread around and being perpetuated by awful, awful sites like moviepilot.com. Don't read that site. Don't ever read moviepilot.com. But anyway, it was a fake rumor being perpetuated by other just clickbait desperate websites like moviepilot.com, in my opinion. Just a horrible, wretched site that kind of represents everything that's wrong with movie talk and movie punditry on the internet. Once again, just my opinion. So there it is what it is. Be careful where you get your movie news from, because it just wasn't true. One of the reasons you should know it wasn't true, though, is because part of the rumor was that Michael Fassbender was really upset that the studio was going to take liberties with the story of Assassin's Creed and not stick close enough to the source material. Well, if you know anything about the movie project itself, Michael Fassbender has actually never played Assassin's Creed. He doesn't know the game at all. He just heard the story pitch and thought it made for a really interesting story and decided to get on board and produce it and be a part of it and to star in it, which I think we're all excited about. But he's never read it. So I really highly doubt that he would ever leave a project because it wasn't sticking close enough to the source material when he has never read the source material. But the other thing I want to challenge you a little bit on this, Osa, is even though this story was fake and that Fassbender has not left Assassin's Creed, and even though he's still there, even if that story was true, the studio stepping away from the source material is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, let's look for a second at X-Men Days of Future Past. Still my favorite movie of the year, probably. That or Captain America 2. Anyway. X-Men Days of Future Past. Remarkable achievement. Just a brilliant, brilliant film. If you know the source material, if you know the X-Men Days of Future Past comic book storyline, you know that the movie took a hell of a lot of liberties. And they really went off in their own direction and did their own thing. Is it kind of X-Men Days of Future Past? Yeah, it's kind of X-Men Days of Future Past, but only very, very loosely. They took huge liberties with it. Why? Because the goal is not to make a story that's as close to the source material as possible. No, your goal is to make the best movie possible. And sticking close to the source material is not always what is going to make the best movie. Like in the case of X-Men Days of Future Past. And that's we got a great, amazing movie as a result. You think Captain America Winter Soldier really sticks to the storyline of Winter Soldier? Nah. but they made the best movie possible. In Assassin's Creed, I just want to make sure we recognize that this is Assassin's Creed. Just, get the basic mythology and then go from there. Make the best movie that you can. Sticking to the source material does not in any way assure a good movie. Making the best movie you can is what's important. So, no, don't worry about it. Michael Fassbender's still very much attached to Assassin's Creed. And if they do take liberties with the source material and go in some different directions for the sake of making a better movie, then be open-minded about it. Because just this year, we've already seen 2 great examples of taking liberty with the source material and going off in your own direction for the sake of making the best movie possible works. Doesn't always work, but it can have amazing, spectacular results. And we've seen it this year, Captain America, Winter Soldier, X-Men Days of Future Past. So, and Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy takes some pretty big liberties but it's the basic idea. We get it. But it's still not really holding true to the comic and the source material. And that's fine because they made the best movie possible. And at the end of the day, man, that's all that really matters. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Kevin Chico, who writes, I wrote that twice. Kevin Chico writes, Hi, AMC Movie Talk. I've been watching long before the Man of Steel review. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. Good to have you on board. I just finished watching District 9 and was wondering if there's ever going to be a sequel to this movie. I think the ending leaves it to a sequel. Love to hear your thoughts. Well, yeah, Kevin, we've talked about this a couple times, actually. The director of District 9, Neil Blomkamp, really shook the world by making this visual effects heavy film for, I believe, like $30 or $40 million. Actually, let me look it up here. I believe it was like $30 or $40 million, which just proves you can make visual effects heavy films without it costing $200 million. So making, yes, the production budget on District 9 was $30 million. Now, granted, he got to do a lot of the visual effects himself. They had Weta on board because Peter Jackson was a producer. I'm sure they got a very sweet rate for using Weta for their visual effects and everything. But still, made that movie for $30 million, which is remarkable. That's the budget of some small independent films. And this was a visual effects heavy sci-fi film for like $30 million. And it's a great movie. Man, it's great. And you're right, the ending leaves itself wide open for a sequel. Here's part of the problem, though. Instead of doing a sequel to District 9, he went ahead, and this was probably the right thing for him to do, because it's what Christopher Nolan does too. Christopher Nolan doesn't do Batman. He doesn't do Batman Begins and then immediately does The Dark Knight. He does Batman Begins, he does another film. Then he does The Dark Knight, then he does another film. Then he does Dark Knight Rises. And that's probably a good move. So Neil Blomkamp's next film was, of course, the one he did with Matt Damon, Elysium. The problem is, and I was as excited as anybody for Elysium. I really was. It's not a very good movie. And on top of that, it felt so much like District 9. And the basic plot points, I've talked about this before, but the basic plot points are all the same from District 9 to Elysium when you really follow it through and think about it. And what it did was it created this sense that, is this all Neil Blomkamp can do? And I believe Elysium hurt the chances for a District 9 sequel. I believe we were in a better position and a better likelihood to see a District 9 2 before Elysium came out than we do now. Now, Neil Blomkamp has another movie coming out called Chappie, which is kind of another sci-fi film. And if it's great, as you know, he's got the, we've obviously seen from District 9, Neil Blomkamp can be great. If it's great, then I think it's going to re-spark talks about District 9 2. If it's another kind of disappointment of a film or a lackluster kind of performance, then I think it may just quash the idea of District 9 2, which would be really unfortunate. Let's just call it District 10 for now. I believe interest waned. I believe interest from the studio waned. I'm not exactly sure. I think Elysium did okay at the box office. Let me just pull it up here. Elysium. I mean, hey, Elysium cost $115 million to make. Worldwide, it made $286. I mean, so it was profitable. It made money. I think they were expecting it to make a little bit more. It didn't crack $100 million domestically. It only made $93 million domestically, but did well overseas. Yeah, like I said, I think it has a lot to do with Chappie. If he can knock it out of the park with Chappie, like he did with District 9, I think it will completely re-energize talks about a sequel to District 9. I really would like to see a sequel to District 9. I think there was a big wide open door that they left at the end of District 9 where they could go on the next chapter very, very easily about, him going and trying to revert back to his human form. I think that's very possible, and if he knocks Chappie out of the park like he's capable of doing, I think we'll hear talks about it again. However, if it gets the same results and the feedback from fans and whatever, and the studios and critics alike that they got for Elysium, I think it may hurt the chances a little bit. So that's where I think we're at right now. Anyway, folks, that'll do it for me. I'm all out of questions for today. Thanks so much for joining me for this installment of AMC Mailbag. Once again, don't forget, guys, you can send in your questions anytime. You can email your questions to us at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. That's the email address. Send in your questions to us 24/7. Maybe we'll use it on Mailbag. Maybe we'll use your questions on Mail Talk. Who knows? Take a shot and send in some questions to find out. Don't forget, lots of great movies playing at AMC theaters right now. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for your theater, your showtime, and of course your movie ticket information. So that'll do it for us, guys. My name is John Campia. Once again, I'm the editor-in-chief over here at AMC Movie News. You can follow me on all the various social media networks on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just at John Campia. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. My name is John Campia for AMC Movie News, and until next time, bye-bye.